Hi all, and welcome to our lab, Learning at Bloomsbury, where our aim is to be able to provide football for all, regardless of the background, ability or financial situation of the players. We want to encourage young people to pursue their full potential in sport and out of sport. As part of a passionate group of football coaches, we know that there are those involved in the game who are always looking for ways to further their knowledge and understand the game, and this notion gave birth to L.A.B, a free coach education platform that brings specialists and other like-minded professionals into the spotlight to share their experiences and ways that you may be able to apply this to your own coaching and programs. So, hi all, my name's Nick Bareham. I'm the Academy Manager at Bloomsbury Football, the home of our L.A.B series. And if you want to reach out and support this L.A.B series, don't hesitate to use our email, learning@bloomsburyfootball.com. That's learning@bloomsburyfootball.com. So, with our topic today, all about enhancing learning, my co-host and diving into our learning today with me is Josh Arnold, a colleague of mine, a master in the game, who brings a lot of experience and knowledge to L.A.B. Josh, what's your take on today's topic?
Hey guys, yeah, I'm really excited to hear from Nicky. We've been privileged enough to chat with him a number of times recently. He's always got so much to share. From a personal standpoint, I enjoy learning from him every time we speak. So it'd be great to share that knowledge on enhancing learning today. Yeah,
so with no further ado, let's hand over to Nicky. And Nicky, how you doing?
Well, good. I'm excited about this one today. We've been speaking quite a lot in the past, and obviously Nick and I, we go a couple of years back. Well, I'm excited. I see that there's some people there. I hope there will be some challenging questions. So that would be my invitation to all of you guys. And I asked Josh as well, if there's something that you say that doesn't make any sense, just attack me. That's what I hope for today as well.
Yeah, and I guess before we do start, that is something I wanted to touch on, because we have been speaking for the last couple of weeks in the lead up to this, and it's something you've encouraged Josh and I to do on a number of occasions, really, is to ask some really challenging questions and make you have to defend your perspective and what it is you're saying. Why is that?
You'll see one of the last slides, we'll come back to that, is without learning, there's no teaching. Yeah, you can have learning without teaching, but you cannot have teaching without learning. And maybe it's a personal thing of mine, that I learn more by challenging, by trying to make things interactive. And I want to invite everyone of that. There's no ego here. If you have something to say, oh, I really disagree. Well, if it's about an opinion, brilliant. If it's about a fact, well, then I'm gonna challenge you challenging me. But in the world of football, I think knowledge should be free. What do I mean by that? Is that if you have knowledge and you have knowledge to share, that's the best way of doing that. So create a safe environment for all of us. That there's no ego. I think in some cases, sometimes I've been to webinars, I've been to one-on-one in real life with people, and they say some things, but they don't really say too much because they're scared of giving away knowledge so that other people would steal their knowledge. You can't steal knowledge, you can only share it. So attack it, ask questions in every shape or form.
Fantastic. So yeah, I think that's a great opportunity to step in there. And for everyone who is involved in today's webinar, if you do have any questions at any stage, don't hesitate to use the Q&A function. Get those questions in, and when appropriate, we'll ask those questions to Nicky and get a response from there. So let's get started, Nicky. I can't wait for this one.
All right, great. So I'll very briefly, because it's been asked, I usually don't like to talk too much about who I am, because that's not so important. I think it's not so important who is talking. I think the message should always be more important. But if you have any any things you want to learn more about NLFC, which means Nicky Lelievre Football Consultancy, there's a website that has been launched, I think 20 minutes ago. So you'll probably be the first one if you go on it. There's not much to there. A lot of explanation will be done there. So we can guide clubs, coaches, and players in an exclusive setting to help their football goals. Try to keep it as small as possible. The idea is not 600 people at the same time, but the idea is maybe one club or two clubs with in one-on-one with coaches, almost like it's a restaurant. You come to the restaurant when you want to eat, and you tell me what you like to eat, instead of me telling you you have to sit there and this is your starter and your dessert and your main course. The idea of NLFC is that if you work with us today, that you don't need us tomorrow. A little bit in the heart of the spirit of give a man a fish or teach a man a fish. So that's the idea behind it. We started this in the best year ever in 2020 and December, a good year to start a new business. But I'm very excited about this. The same thing as about today is a lot of these times in these individual talks that at the end of the talk, I've learned the same or sometimes more, even though that's a way of challenging myself. But the rest you'll find on the website about that. What we will talk about today is what is the role of the coach. We've been speaking about it here, how to design a session. Now there's 100 things you can find on sessions online everywhere, and some are great, some are maybe less, some are good on paper, are difficult in real life. We've seen all these kind of things. What is now the role of a coach? If I'm a beginning coach, but even if I am a coach with a lot of experience that's been there for a very long time, sometimes in the world of football, because people don't die when we do nonsense, we can lower our bar. In other fields of work fields, that would not happen. So I just put some pictures here in the role of the coach, and we'll hopefully at the end of this webinar, you can have like a decision-making tree almost to say like, hey, does this make sense in football, or is it maybe a little bit less useful? And how can we enhance learning? So the first thing I did was, there are so many people in the world who are more knowledgeable than me, are more successful, and they have all these more experience. So let's see what they say about this. Yeah, we have Juan Lilo. He's now on the bench in Liverpool, Man City, and yes, a very funny guy, very knowledgeable guy. Every coach in the world says, "Wow, this is my example." And he says, "Well, the coach is there to pick 11 players for the match. I cannot imagine another role for the coach." So it's a little bit, let the players play their football. You're there to pick 11 people, and don't make yourself bigger than that. So, well, okay, that doesn't sound really good. I want to be a coach if that's all I have to do. So I had a look at a famous, another coach, one of the most famous ones in the world. And he says, how you can read the quote, everyone knows this. He said, "I learned to play football with my friends on the street, not in one of the best academies in the world." So when I see that, what is the role of the coach? So we organize street football. We pick 11 players for the match. And this is probably the shortest webinar in the history of webinars, because yeah, this is the end of the presentation then. If you can just organize street football and pick 11 people, and so that they don't fight over that, then most of your job is already done. So this is a very depressing webinar. If you are an aspiring coach, that's it. Obviously, of course, these are statements that are made that we cannot take too seriously, but there's a lot of truth in this as well. If we see what we sometimes are doing as a coach, and we complain that we say, "Oh, our kids don't play on the streets anymore, so they don't learn football," and then we have a 1 hour or 90-minute session of which we waste half of that session, well, there's a problem there. Sometimes we're not using useful time. Yeah. So what is the role of a coach? Yeah. Now, of course, we have to first see what is football. Now everyone understands what football is: an invasion sport. We have a ball, we have opponents, we have teammates, and we have goals. If you score more, you win. And those are the rules of football. I've been fortunate enough to coach in 4 continents, and everywhere this rule is the same. If you score more, you win the match. Yeah. Still, if we look at it, we see in a lot of countries, we describe football in different ways. We have in England a 4-corner model, which is actually 3-corner model, and 1 corner is even still 2 corners. So it's like 3.5 or 4.5 corners, however you want to say it. You have in the Netherlands, we have another 4-corner model. It's also 4 corners, but different corners. Then in Belgium, we have a 4-corner model, but we have 5 phases of the play, and in other countries, there's only 4. In Chelsea, they do it in this way. In Germany, they do it in another way. And we're all speaking about the same thing, which means that sometimes language itself can become the barrier. If we want to pass on knowledge and improve football, and language is the thing that stands in the way of that, then we need to be able to describe what is football in a better way. We can talk about this for hours. We're not going to do it. I'm going to try to do it in 5 minutes so we can go on to the next one. But what is football? Well, first of all, football is an invasion sport where we play 11 versus 11. And it's how do you pronounce this? Derivatives? I hope you can hear that English is not my first language. My apologies. But we have 11 against 11. So we think again about Johan Cruyff. Where did I learn football? On the streets. So your job as a coach is to have 22 people in your squad. You have 2 goals, a football pitch, a ball, and you let them play football. Yeah. And that's probably going to be quite useful and quite effective. We learn football by playing football. Now, the issue with this is, of course, if you want to focus on a certain aspect of football, in 11 versus 11, that certain aspect doesn't happen too often, probably. If you want to focus on, let's score more, we want to score more, and we only have 11 against 11, and there are 10 chances in that match, you only have 10 times. So we can actually make it a little bit less realistic. So smaller numbers, or we change something around to have more of what you want to see. So that I want to talk about. In our 11 aside, in our pitch, we have a direction of play. Yeah, we have a final third, a second, and a first third. So sometimes you want to see football action to happen more in the second third, creating chances or prevent creating chances. Playing out from the back or preventing playing out, scoring or prevent scoring, and so on and so on. So we have our phases of play. Yeah, everyone has heard this a million times, so we're not going to go too long over it. We have the ball, we lose the ball, we win, we don't have the ball, we win the ball back. Now, in some teams, you can have, this means that you have 12 moments of the game. The more contact time you have with your team that you're coaching, the more intricate you can make this. What does this mean? For example, if I am, let's say I'm Liverpool, I'm the coach of Liverpool, and Liverpool says I'm going to go when we lose the ball in midfield, or when we don't have the ball in midfield, so out of possession in the second third, and this is moment number 7, we want to close the outsides so that they can play through the middle, and then we can have an interception because we're close to the goal. We're right in front of the goal when we win the ball. Yeah. Now, Man City most of the time says, no, we are closing the middle. Yeah. And we're going to do horizontal pressure. So from sideline to sideline, because with the sideline is the best defender in the world, and no one can beat the sideline. And we have something else to help us. So it's easier to win the ball back. But when we win the ball, we're further away from the middle of the field, middle of the goal. Yeah. So every style of play has its advantages and has its disadvantages. Which is the best one? Well, the one who wins on a Saturday, on Sunday is in that match, the best one sometimes. If you have a lot of time, you can make it very complicated. Yeah, which every moment of the game you can change. You can even add moments of the game. If you only have 1 or 2 sessions in the week, the problem is if you're going to make it extremely complicated, and this is moment number 12 is so much different from moment number 8 and moment number 4. The problem is that then there will be miscommunication in the team, and it's unpredictable. It's unpredictable for the opponent, which is good, but it's also unpredictable for your own teammates, which is bad. Yeah. So we want to stay predictable for teammates and become unpredictable for the opponent. That's why sometimes we will see very predictable things to do with coaches when they come to a new team that's not doing very well, or in the World Cup because they don't have a lot of contact time together. But also a lot of contact time, they can become a lot more unpredictable, a lot more intricate and detailed. As long as everyone understands what the team is going to do, that's not a problem. And it will become more unpredictable for the opponent. Yeah, so that's the issue. That's the goal of tactics. That's why we have tactics. Predictable for teammates, unpredictable for the opponent. Yeah. Good. When we have these 12 moments of the game, everyone understands this. We have the ball in midfield. Yeah, what are we doing? We're creating chances. So here, this is just what you already know. If we don't have the ball in the second third, how we are preventing chances, and so on and so on. Now, please, I want to help challenge myself and challenge you as well, that if we are going to focus on one of these 12 moments, that we can never look at this without looking at the other 11. If you want to do fast press, yeah, when you lose the ball and 4 people immediately press the ball, like Liverpool will do, you cannot do this if you play a long passing game, because people are very far. So it has to be linked in some way to each other. So yes, you can focus more in one of these 12 moments, but that doesn't necessarily, you should not at all take it away from all the other ones. You are still improving football and just focusing more on one of the moments of the game, yeah, without forgetting all the rest. When can you do this as a coach? Well, even if you're looking at Liverpool, Man City, or you're having a pint of beer or whatever it is, you can still look at the game. Okay, what are they doing when they play out? What are they doing the other way around? And that's how you have your idea of, this is how I would like my team to play football. If it's a really good club that you're working for, this is how all of the teams in your club are working together. So it's even more predictable for teammates, yeah? But you can do this. If you don't have an idea what to do in one of these 12 moments, then think of Johan Cruyff, think of Juan Malilo, a ball, 2 goals, and let them play. Because a player cannot execute what you want to do if you don't even know what you want to do as a coach. So that we'll come to that later. Yeah, so if you have an idea, imagine you're in the second third of the field, we have the ball, yeah? So we're trying to create chances. Now, how do we create chances? You've decided with your team, this is an example, if everyone can be different, we've decided we want to attract horizontal pressure. What does that mean? We keep the ball on one side of the field until the other team is also on that side. So there's less people on the right side if we do this left, or the other way around. Yeah, then we play the ball very fast to the other side to try score there. This is, for example, what you want to do, how you want to create chances. So what we want to do when we have the ball in the middle, in midfield. Yeah, so we attract horizontal pressure to switch and score on the weak side. This is what you would do in your 11-a-side. Yeah. Now, maybe you don't have 22 people, or maybe there's not enough repetition. Or maybe you're playing with a team that is very young and they only play 7-a-side or 9-a-sides. They don't play 11-a-sides. So we actually have to make it more simple. So there's more repetition, or for whatever reason it is. So we're going to go to 8v8. Now, typically we will see a lot of times 8v8 or 7v7 or 9v9. We play in a double diamond and both teams play that way. Now I want to challenge that a little bit. So this means I'm going to delete 3 people from my own team and 3 people from the opponent. Yeah, if I only have 16 people in my training session. So now I want you to look at red team. So red team is the team that is trying to create the chances. So they have the ball in midfield. Yeah, and they try to attract horizontal pressure, so pressure towards the sideline. So I want you to, by yourself, which 3 of the red team would you delete? Would you say, I have to take those 3 up? And the same for the blue team. Which 3 of the blue team is, if they're preventing creating chances, are the least important? Yeah, so think for yourself. I'll give you 5 seconds. Yeah, I would choose in this case, but maybe you choose someone else, that's fine. Well, first of all, 8v8, we have to make the field smaller. Yeah. And I decided for a red team, I don't need a goalkeeper that much, and I don't need my center backs, for example, or wing back. That's your decision, what you make. But I do need my people in midfield, and I do need my strikers up front because we're creating chances. Now, for the other team, if they prevent creating chances, well, maybe I've decided to take away the striker of blue team and 2 attacking midfielders, and I'm letting my wingers come inside, or you delete the wing. It's up to you which ones you delete, as long as you have the most important 8 people, which is your goalkeeper, the last line, and the midfield are there. That makes a lot more sense. Now, you don't have 16 people, you only have 10, or you play 5-a-sides. Can you still, in a 5-a-side team, can you still get some of these things across that link to 11-a-side? Of course you can. Of course, you make your field smaller again, and you delete 3 people of red and 3 people of blue. Now, I've chosen to delete those. So we play on a smaller field, but still in the same position. And even if you're playing with adults, you play 5v5, this is still related to creating chances in 11 versus 11. You can make your field even smaller if you want to make it more difficult. You can add a teammate, take a teammate out, add an opponent, take an opponent out to make it easier or more difficult, but at least it's still linked to my 11 against 11. If you have an under 8 team or whatever it is, and you're playing 5v5, does it still relate in some way to eventually improving 11 against 11? Yeah, if it's completely nothing is the same, then you can challenge yourself, say, is this very useful? Good. Then if I go to a 4v2, I'm going to focus a lot more on the repetition, and I'm going to focus a lot more on execution of decisions. But even my 4v2s, if I set them up like this, they look in some way like the 11 against 11. My left winger in the match will, in my training session, be also left winger. Because this is what I'm preparing him for. Now, this can change, obviously, but try to make it predictable for teammates. That's the most important. It makes sense that who plays with each other in the match, that in training sessions do this as well. Now, what are they doing? They're playing the ball around. There are 2 goals on the side, so they can go straight or to the middle. Imagine in the match you play in this position. Those are also the directions that you want to go if you want to go from side to side. In midfield, the same. You can score on this one and this one. Yeah, in the center, I mean. And then on the left wing, it's the same thing. This 4v2 looks like 11 against 11 and helps improve 11 against 11. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Now, think of your 11 against 11, whatever you want to do, playing out, we lose the ball in midfield, we win the ball in the final third, it doesn't matter. And what do you want to give more attention to? Yeah. So keep it simple, keep it simple. We don't need to think of 1,000 different things. If you know what you want to do, we want to create chances by attracting pressure to one sideline and then switch to the other sideline. Yeah, but we see that there is a lot of miscommunication. Yeah, the players don't understand what to do. So we have big-sided games, because if there's a lot of people, there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of showing verbally and non-verbally what we want to do. And there's a lot of perceiving as well, what is happening around me. In a 3v1 situation, are there tactics? Yes, there are. There is communication, there's interaction between players. But it's such simple interaction between players that those numbers may be too small. So we need bigger numbers for that. Yeah. If you want to focus on decision making, then we have to get those numbers a little bit smaller. So these are your positional games, medium-sided games, however you want to call them. Why is that? Because if there now is less people, there's less chance of miscommunication. So you can go more into decision making. I am playing my right winger. He is running deep. I understand he's running deep. He understands I'm going to pass the ball. But when am I passing the ball? Where am I passing the ball? What direction am I passing the ball? And how hard am I passing the ball? Now I can make those decisions. Decision making in football is time and space. Position of my action, the moment, the direction, and the speed of my action. Yeah, I get the numbers a little bit lower, not big-sided games, so there's less miscommunication. So we can arrive at decision making. Now, what if you want to do more repetitions and you want to focus on technique? Technique in football is executing the correct decision. So if there's a lot of miscommunication, yeah, you won't get to the technique. Yeah, I am the best passer in the world, and you're the best receiver, but you run deep and I pass into feet. Yeah, I'm still a good passer. You're still a good receiver. So technically there's nothing wrong with us. There's only miscommunication. So we get the numbers lower. Now there's decision making. Yeah. But if the numbers are still too high, we're playing 6v4, that's not enough repetition. And maybe I make wrong decisions. So I execute wrong decisions. No, we want to get less decisions in a 3v1 or a 4v2, for example. Now the decision making is quite easy. Now it's just executing that decision. Yeah, that together, if there is communication, there's decision making and technique. Yeah, so you have a ball, you need an opponent, because decisions is not in football is not the decision of what the coach says that you can do. There's too many decisions to be made. It's the player has to decide based on his teammates, opponents, the position of the ball, and the position of the goal. If we have that, then we're going to go into football fitness. And football fitness is just do this longer. How do you want to play? And can you do it for 90 minutes? Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
Nicky, just to jump in there. So you talk of the repetitive practice and just using the horizontal pressure as an example, where would you start with the ball for that practice? So to ensure that it doesn't get sort of boring for the players, where would you start the ball? In this one, would you start it with the goalkeeper who plays out? And what happens when you remove the keeper?
Well, you can. If there's in 11 against 11, well, first of all, it depends a little bit on the level of your team. In some teams, this can happen quite often. Now, if we see it doesn't happen enough, so it's still realistic, but it's not. We don't repeat it enough. Well, in this one, you will have more repetitions already. Is it still realistic? Yes. It still is linked to my 11 against 11. Yeah, it's less realistic than 11 against 11, obviously, but you'll have already a little bit more repetitions because the ball can't be in the first third almost. We're already in the first and the second, and the final third. Now, where does the ball start? Well, that's a little bit your choice. If you say I'm at least going to give it to the red team, that to me makes more sense. Yeah, but where you give it to the red team, well, I want them to be able to do this in every situation. I'm not always going to give the ball to the left winger, to the 11, and I say, okay, the ball starts here, and now we start. Well, now it's not very realistic anymore. If blue team wins the ball, let blue team score. We don't say, blue team won, let red team do it again. There's always 4 ways in having to make things simpler or more difficult. Fantastic question, by the way. How can you make things more simple? If you add teammates, it will probably be more simple if we have the ball. Yeah, if you take opponents away, it will probably be a little bit more simple. We can play with space, make it a little bit shorter and wider. Now we will by itself, we'll play more from left to right. Yeah, if you make it narrow and long, there will be a lot more direct play. And you can add rules. If you add rules, that is the least realistic way, I would say. If you can do it without having to add rules, without having to talk, just I say here, but they're playing always through the middle. So we're not even attracting pressure from side to side because blue team is too weak. Well, yeah, then keep doing it. The goal is to score. Yeah, the goal is not to attract the pressure from side to side. If you score through the middle, brilliant. How can you, as a coach, influence this? Maybe make your field a little bit wider and a little bit shorter. Maybe add opponents and take away teammates. In this way, we can do it with still being realistic, without having to be always it has to start on the right wing or the left wing. No, actually, we want the ball probably start in the middle and then keep playing until we attract that pressure and then we switch it. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think you touched on it there. So you would always play sort of end to end. So the opposition win the ball, you would let them play out the attack. And would you put any sort of encouragement for them to play in the same way, or do you just want to then see them go and score in the goal as quick as possible?
Well, the encouragement that they have, and the best encouragement is if they score, because it's nice. If you score, you like them, you win. That's a better encouragement than to say, hey, good job, I think. But if we see that it happens too much, blue team scores all the time, and red team, what we want to see is not happening, then we think of our four ways of making things easier or more difficult. Maybe I take away one player of blue team. Maybe I add a red team. Maybe I put blue team in the different formation, which is also possible. I play with 3 in the back instead of 4. So now there's more space on the wings to play, for example. Maybe I am going to make my field shorter and longer. I'm already making a little bit unrealistic by giving red team the ball to start with all the time. Is it still too difficult? Again, take away opponent, add teammate, play with the dimension of your field again. In the end, yeah, the most simpler you could make it is a 10v1. And if they can't do it in a 10v1, all right, then take them out and now do against 0 training. And now we're going to do without the opponent. And then that probably is something that we need to work on in a dry way, that it's completely non-realistic. But I see sometimes we start with this. We start with a 4v0 training session, which is completely unrealistic. The chance of this will be repeated in a match is not extremely high. So try it first. Try with your 11 against 11. If it doesn't, change teammates, opponents, space, and even if you really have to, you can change rules as well. Okay.
So to build on that, Nicky, we've got a good question coming here from the question and answer part, which speaks about achieving equal outcomes. So what I'm gauging from that is each learner achieving the learning objectives that we've got for that session, even with players of different individual needs. So how can you get equal outcome from the practice, even with players of different individual needs?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I'm gonna have to think about this for a second or two because I want to answer it properly. So if I rephrase the question to make sure that I understand it. Yeah, let's say we play 8v8, whatever it is, but there's quite a difference between the better players in my team and the weaker players, or for example, with grown-ups, with players who are in age are different, or they come from a lower level or a higher level. How can I still make sure that everyone improves during the session? That's a little bit the question.
Yeah, I think it's achieving what is the objective of the session. When you may have players within that practice who some range at the higher level, with some who range at the lower level, some whose individual challenges might be in tactical understanding versus others with technical execution. How do you achieve an equal outcome for all of those different people?
Yeah. You know, because it is a team sport, and I'm going to say something that's not 100% going to sound fantastic, because it is a team sport and you have a common goal. The common goal is we have to score, yeah, and we try to make sure that the opponent doesn't score. They always say, if you look statistically at it, if you can add a fantastic player to your team, or you can switch the weakest player and make the weakest player a little bit better, it's actually a better idea to switch your weakest player. Now, if you look individually more, first of all, if you see that your team is there's too much difference between whatever it is, between your number 9 and your number 10, is what I would almost say, look at what the average is of your team, yeah, so that everyone can do it. Make it more difficult for the ones who are in this case are better. Maybe the ones who, if we're doing 11 big-sided games, we're focusing on interaction, we're focusing on talking verbally, non-verbally, and also seeing things, on perceiving that. If he is really good at these things, well, keep it that way. How can we make it more difficult for him, for that player? Maybe he's in the team that has less people. Maybe he is in a team that has less teammates, or whatever it is. Maybe we're going to put him in positions where he has less space. If you are typically where we expect in the center zone in the middle, so in the central corridor, you have less time to touch the ball, than you have on the sides. On the sides, we have more time to touch the ball. The problem is on the sides, we have less directions to go because here it's out, yeah? In the middle, we have 8 directions to go. On the side, we have 5 directions to go. Straight, diagonal, sideways, diagonal, backwards, and backwards. In the middle, we have 8. So those players that you see that are struggling in that position, maybe try them out in a different position where they have more time or where they have more directions to go into. But definitely, if you are in a big-sided game, it's quite a difficult one. That's more difficult to differentiate. If you're going to go to your smaller ones, here is a little bit more easy to differentiate. If you're playing here, your 4v2s that I'm playing, yeah, well, maybe if it's possible, if I can keep them in the same position, yeah, but here I have a number 9, but I have a number 9 here because the number 9 sometimes is there as well. But these are maybe 3 people that can play there in your team. Well, maybe here I'm putting someone else and I will put there. So I can still look a little bit at the level of what that player can do. But I also look at what is his opponents. The best feedback is always your opponent. It's not the coach that says yes or no. You're not that important as a coach. You can say that is bad, but if you're playing a 1v1 and the other one scores, the coach doesn't need to say it's bad. Yeah, so the best feedback is your opponent. Now, if we see that these guys, it's too easy for them, yeah, maybe we can make this space smaller. It is no problem that we're doing the same exercises if we're doing a 4v2 and we have different spaces in some situations. Yeah, or maybe we do a 3v2 here, in their case. Or we can add something which is rules, which makes it less realistic. Yeah, I never like saying how you only have to play 2 touches. Maybe that's a wrong decision, but maybe we can work with time. You only have 3 seconds time to move the ball. However, if you want to take 1,000 touches in 3 seconds, that's not important. So rules are a way of finding a way around it, but it's too difficult. If you have someone who's so much better than the rest, if he's the best player on the field, he's on the wrong field. Then it's time for you as a coach and you as a club to find a way to get this player to challenge him more. Maybe play him up a year, I don't know. Maybe even say, hey, it's time for you to go to a different club because we cannot challenge you anymore. I know that's unpopular with a lot of clubs, but that's something that we might have to do. If you feel that you have some players who are really, really, for whatever reason it is, biological age, and they can't follow with the rest of the team, well, you as a club, maybe if it's possible, why do we not say, hey, why can you not train with a year younger for a couple of months? Or can we give him more time and space, more teammates, less opponents? These are all things how we can do it. Perfectly, you have a team of similar level. If someone is too good, if he is the best player on the field, he's on the wrong field. Maybe if he's the weakest player on the field, he's also on the wrong field. Yeah. Long answer to a short question.
Definitely. I agree with you there, Nicky. I think we have one measure of success in that session is our outcome is X. And I, as a coach, have to facilitate the learning for that player, understanding or, consistently achieving X in execution. Mm-hmm. Now, for some players, they may arrive at that early. Therefore, can we make their journey to X, that learning point, harder? Mm-hmm. For others, we may need to make that easier. So in order to achieve an equal outcome for everyone, it's the journey and the parameters that we put them in. So going back to your example there about time and spaces, if a player finds it difficult arriving at that point, make the space that they have larger. Mm-hmm. So they have more time to execute that decision. So I think definitely going back to that question, it's a case of one, understanding those individual players and their needs. And when you do plan that session and prepare, you are prepared to be able to alter the environment for that player.
If I can pick in for one last thing about this, because what a fantastic question. You can talk about this just for this question for hours. It's almost like, how do we individually periodize within a team periodization? Also, equal outcomes. I know that we want to achieve that, an equal outcome, but there's two things. I think that equal opportunity is an important one. We as a coach, we provide the training that affords the player to learn this. Yeah. But if I'm going to go surfing, I need a surfboard and I need water, I need waves. So I have the same environment than someone else, and I can't surf to save my life. Yeah, so my surfing that I'm doing, I will fall off the board. So the environment is the same, but there is still a difference in level. That is okay. We don't need to in the same session. Maybe it takes a longer time. Maybe it takes a couple of sessions. Maybe you have a late mature, an early mature player, and can actually take a year's time to reach that. But also, learning is not a straight line. What I want to say is non-linear. What you see that, oh, this player today can't do it, and it's not the equal outcome. He didn't learn as much as the other one, but all of a sudden, after a couple of weeks, he gets it. Yeah. So trust the process as well. Afford him to learn it. Don't make it too easy. Sometimes you say, well, he is technically not good enough. I say he can't execute a good pass, and we make the space a little bit bigger. We help them, which will come to what the role of the coach is. We help them by asking good questions to say, hey, did you see this? Or what is happening here? And with just a small intervention, all of a sudden this player can do it. Yeah, it's just because we helped him to learn faster. It is not trial and error. It is by reflection of, yeah, but what is a good solution? And all of a sudden this player 10 minutes later is technically a good player. Yeah, the player is literally in 10 minutes didn't become a technically good player. He just knew now, what do I look at? What is useful information? But don't pin yourself too much. At the end of this session, we have to have an equal outcome. It won't 100% be. Some players will not have gotten it in that session, and that is fine. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It takes a longer time. We don't learn linear. It's not we learn A and then B. No, learning is such a chaos that we don't necessarily can predict when someone learns. Just make sure that you as a coach provide the environment that affords him to learn it. If he learns it, we can help, but he still has to do the learning. Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit further because there's still a lot to do, and I can imagine that there will be more questions and maybe answers in the next slides. Yeah. So if we roughly have an idea what football is, so in football we need understanding between team players. Yeah, we can make decisions in space and time. We don't have to execute these decisions, and then we do them for longer. Yeah. So, but how do we learn? That's always a tough one. So I understand now what football is, so I can become a pundit. I have knowledge of football. That doesn't necessarily mean I have knowledge in football. As coaches, I make the same mistake. I always think that if I talk about football to my players and they then understand what to do when we talk of football, and then in the match they can't do it. They can't do it in football. So maybe the way we teach is not completely the same as how humans learn. And if they didn't learn, then you didn't teach. Yeah. So how, as a species, have we learned for thousands of years? We've learned by trial and error for thousands of years. Sick, okay, we can eat that berry again. We eat the berry, we get sick or we die. Yeah, we're not going to eat that berry anymore. And this is it's a process that we've always learned for thousands of years how we do things. Yeah, before we even could speak and talk, before there was conscious thought, unconsciously trial and error is how animals learn, and human race for thousands, tens of thousands of years as well. So this maybe gives us a pointer to some of the things that we would like to put in our training sessions for our players as well. And so we let the players experience something. Then while they're experiencing this, they're trying things out, should try and error. If it's success, yeah, they keep doing it. If it's an error, then they will have to do something else, and they experience it again. Yeah, so it's during we learn by experiencing. We learn football by playing football. The issue might be with this is it's extremely slow. And this is a slow way of learning. It takes a long time for us to know which berries we can eat and which berries we cannot eat. Yeah, and not only that, we'll get sick. In football, if we just let them play, like Johan Cruyff said, I learned more by playing 4 hours on the street than with 4 hours per week, 4 hours per day on the street. I will challenge you on Cruyff. I can't anymore, of course, but I would challenge him a little bit. So, but who says that your 1 hour, that you had was not more efficient than your 4 hours? Because if the 4 hours were more efficient, the 1 hour on the street is more efficient than the 1 hour on the training session, then he's really right. Give them a ball, let them play, and stay away. Don't ruin it as a coach for them. Let them do it. But because this is a very slow process, we can actually speed it up. And this is a very important role that we have as a coach. We are going to reflect, help them reflect about errors, help them reflect about success. How come this was successful? What do we learn from that? How can we replicate this success? How come this was unsuccessful? What can we change so that we have a higher chance to be successful? And after a while, so this speeds up your learning. Instead of having to make thousands of mistakes, now we only have to make maybe 20, because of good coaching, because of good question asking by your coach. But also it works even better because if we start to realize like, hey, this is successful, then we can actually start predicting what successful would successful be like. So now we don't have to try 20 things, say, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. We can actually, I think this will be successful because we reflect and predict, but we still have to keep on following the same process that we did for tens of thousands of years. We experience it first, find solutions. Then as a coach, your job is how come this worked? How come it didn't work? And what do you think then of the second time we experience it? What can we try to make it successful in the future? Not more than that. Don't give them the solutions before they experienced it. Don't go onto the session, oh, this is what we're going to do, and I want you to do this. No, let them do it. Give them the training environment that affords them to give one of these solutions. And then you can say, oh no, maybe this is not working. How come? Don't give them an 11-a-side, to come back to the question of Josh, 11-a-side, and say, but you have to play from side to side. No, they have to try to score. That's the goal of football. Not getting horizontal pressure. And if this doesn't work because they've always played through the middle and they're successful, but that's not what you want to see as a coach, well, make your field a little bit wider and shorter. Now they will do it, for example. So this is how we can, as a coach, influence learning of our players. Still let them experience it, help them reflect, and let them experience again. And then again, reflect if we need to, and again, until we find that successful action that stays successful and that even predicts future success. So role as a coach, we accelerate learning football by guided reflection. This doesn't mean 2 minutes of football, 10 minutes of reflection, and 2 minutes of football. I've seen this, I've given this presentation before, and the coach let them literally play football for 19 seconds, then spoke for 7 minutes and let them play for 6 seconds. Oh, you made the same mistake, and then spoke again for 20 minutes. And then he wonders why they can't do it. So we keep that as brief as possible. One good question, or even sometimes pointing to something, can be more successful than talking too long about it. If we not want to load, so we are helping the player to enhance their learning by good reflection between the experience. We also have to know, of course, well, what is the job of a player? The job of a player is to continue to execute good football actions in the context of the playing style for 90 minutes. If you have 11-a-side team, sometimes it's 80 minutes or less, depending on your team. Why is this important? Why am I saying this? If this is the player's job, then we have to help him as a coach. But how can a player do this if what is unclear? So now we're coming into the second biggest point for a role as a coach. First of all is guided reflection, accelerate learning. Maybe these solutions might be good. Why? Why did it work? Why did it not work? And how can we predict future solutions after experience? But also we have to make sure, what do we want the team to do? So now your player can execute that. In a very good club, or in a very good organization, this should not be very different between the age groups. This should look a little bit similar. Otherwise, that's going to be a total chaos. So what does the club expect from our team? We saw this slide already. So again, when we're watching Liverpool, Man City, we're looking at, hey, how do they do these things? How would I like to do it? What do I think is realistic from my team? What's the contact time I have? And that I'm going to combine. Sorry, I'll do that. We're coming. So I need here to know what I want my team to do. If you know what your team wants to do, now we're going to train it. If you don't know what your team is going to do, then it's very difficult to prepare your session. Yeah. If you really have a good idea of what you want to do, preparing your session is actually quite easy. What does it look like in 11 against 11? How many people do I have? So how many do I have to delete? Yeah. And how can I replicate it? If I want to do more tactical sides, so understanding bigger sided games, if I want have more repetition, so I can focus on the technique of a decision on that small side of the games. I'm playing 3v1s or 4v2s that still look like 11 against 11. So now you're going to go to preparing your session. Yeah. The famous quote of Jose Mourinho, I think, was on the Amazon thing about Tottenham, was prepare for the worst and you're prepared. That he was saying, and I think that's a good thing. Everyone makes sessions. It's not difficult to have a session, to make a session. Very easy. If you want to have a good session, maybe that's different. You need to prepare your session. If you're very good at this, you have some experience, you know what you want to do in all the things, it will become easier and easier. But if you come to the field and you don't know what to do and you didn't prepare anything, hopefully you can have an efficient session, but I really doubt it. Yeah. So we need to prepare for that. What do we want to do? And what am I going to focus on more today? And then I'm going to link that to something individual. Individual actions are basic. You cannot have one without the other. We are not going to train passing today. We're not going to train dribbling, or we're not going to train blocking the ball or crossing. That's something we call individual. Yeah. But we can also not do pressing. Pressing in itself is a team characteristic. We press together as a team. Yeah. But if you do pressing, there will be a block tackle. So for example, I'm going to do, what do we do when we lose the ball? We lose the ball in the second third. We've just lost the ball and we want to go, one goes to the ball and 3 do man marking, whatever it is. Okay, what is then a basic that belongs with this? That might be checking your shoulder. That might be doing a block tackle. That might be a sliding tackle. It might be a sprint, stop action. It doesn't matter. But we always link those two. If someone says, I'm going to do dribble training, okay, in what phase? Because dribbling, when you're close to your own goal, in the center, is a lot different than dribbling in the final third just before you score. It's completely different. Yeah, so we need to link those things. Then we decide, what do we want to give more attention to? Can you say, hey, I'm going to give today more attention to big-sided games because it fits in my planning of the week perfectly? That's definitely is possible. You're going to fit. You said, but actually, everyone understands what to do in the match. We just make wrong decisions. The timing of when we do it is not correct. We are going to do more decision-making games. Yeah, so positional games that we're going to play, smaller numbers, medium-sized games. So, actually, everyone understands what to do when we lose the ball in midfield. We do it at the correct position, moment, the direction, and the speed. But when we go, we lean backwards so we don't transfer power into our block tackle. So we need to focus on the technique of a block tackle. Yeah, you do this in smaller sided games. In your 4v2, 3v1s, they have a lot of repetition of block tackles if you choose so. Yeah, and then with older groups, now we want to do this for 90 minutes. So then football fitness comes there after the growth spurt. Yeah, so we have what we want to do in the 11 side. We know this. Now we're going to go smaller and smaller and smaller. However, we need to do is, this could be one if you want to do, in midfield, we lose the ball. How do we do this? Now I'm going to change it around. I'm going to make 4 blue ones, 2 red ones. Red has the ball, tries to score. I change the goals. If blue wins the ball, we immediately press and do block tackle. Even if that is a 2v4, we don't always have to have the team that has the ball, doesn't always have to have a numerical superiority. Doesn't have to have more people. It's not necessary. You can give the ball to the group who has less people, if the level of them, of those players warrant that, of course. If the level doesn't warrant that, we know, we already spoke about that, more teammates, less opponents, bigger space. Those are things how we can influence that. Good. So this is a little bit how we do prepare our session. So we have an idea. What do I want the team to do? What phase am I going to focus on more? I hope that almost all the phases are in my training session. I'm just going to focus more on this. I'm going to make sure that I have more opportunity to do blocking in midfield. So which people do I need? Which positions do I need? What basic am I going to do? So decision making and execution. And now I have a fantastic session that I have on paper, and I can still ruin that. Yeah. I can have a horrible session on paper and make it a big success as well. So how we do it as a coach. So first, again, we need to know what are we going to do. The what is always first, and then it's how we're going to do it. So how am I doing during this session? I want to give you a challenge or a funny quote about Marco van Basten when he was in AC Milan, I think, or even after that. Marco van Basten said, of the 10 academy coaches I had, 8, if I listened to them, I would never become a football player, because if I listened to 8 of those, 1 didn't do anything wrong and only 1 taught me something. Yeah, and I don't think that Marco van Basten had horrible coaches. Yeah, I think he probably had good coaches. And sometimes we are not good at preparing sessions. Sometimes we're not good at delivering sessions. But in order to be have learning, both of those have to be quite good. So how can we measure ourselves as coaches? Am I doing a good job during my session? Yeah, and we're going to give you 2 tools to measure yourself a little bit. And how I hope that you understand now what's happening. You do your session, you reflect about your session. We're going to give you tools about that, and you do your session again. Where do we hear that before? 10,000s of years. We do something, we think about it, we do it again. So we're doing the same thing in this webinar. You make your session, you think about your session, you're going to reflect, and you do it again, because that's a faster way than just doing sessions. This doesn't work. This doesn't work. But was there conscious reflection about it? Was there prediction of what will work in the future? That's what I want you to try to do. Yeah, so during the session, what am I giving more attention to? So that's the slide with big-sided games, medium-sided games, small-sided games that we're doing, or football fitness, maximum actions, football conditioning games. We won't go into that today. But what do I want to achieve? If you're doing a big-sided game, so your goal for that big-sided game is we want to improve understanding of the entire team, what to do in this phase of play. And then you're going to coach, no. Your arm has to go there. When you shoot, you have to look at the ground. So now your coaching words are geared towards execution of a decision, but you're doing this in a big-sided game is probably not the most efficient. Are you allowed to coach? Of course you can say, if you see the same thing happen over and over and over again, when he shoots, the ball always goes over the goal, even in a big-sided game, you can say this because there is decision-making and it is this execution of decisions. But if you see that this is a problem, then probably a smaller-sided game would be better for him, a 3v1, for example. Now, if you're doing a 3v1s, there is communication, there is understanding, interaction between players. Yeah. So, but if you're going to coach all the time, but which word do we use? Look at what he's doing. If he goes here, you go there. So you're coaching a lot of the time on interaction between players, then probably this is not the best exercise to do it. So what am I giving attention to also dictates a little bit what are the words I'm going to coach. So this means, because for you as a coach, especially in the big-sided games, you can coach a million things in 1 minute. Limit yourself. You can write this down in your preparation. Big-sided game, when we attract pressure left, I want to switch to the other side. Okay, what is the trigger? When do we do this? What are the coaching words? How can I show to my player, to my teammate that I'm going to switch? That's what I'm going to help in my reflections as a coach. Yeah. So how do I communicate this, and how do I get the desired football actions from my team? Yeah. I hope that this makes a little bit sense. Yes, you can coach everything in all the situations, but I'm going to limit myself. I'm not going to coach constantly position in a big-sided game, because I'm going to coach a lot more communication. Yes, Josh.
So you talked there about sort of coach limiting yourself there. Mm-hmm. How many different things do you feel that you can coach sort of at one time in a session? So, and when do you step in if things are going wrong?
Yeah, good question. First of all, it needs to be a pattern. Yeah, if you see a pattern of good things happening, step in very briefly. And even if I would do it, if I'm playing let's say a big-sided game, and we're playing 2 times 10 minutes with 2 minutes rest, if you're able to do it in those 2 minutes rest in your reflection time, we keep it active time quite high. Sometimes I see that we see something really good, and because the FA has taught us, stop them and tell them it was good. So now all of a sudden, 22 people have to stop because one person did something good. And so they're going to hope he doesn't do anything good anymore because they want to play football. The other way as well, if one player does something consistently wrong, does this mean that everyone has to stop? Maybe yes, if it's relevant to the entire team, and otherwise no. How many coaching points? I would limit myself. Okay, if I'm playing, very simple. The phase of play is, let's keep to the example we used before. We're going to attract horizontal pressure from side to side to switch and score on the other side, or try to do this. Yeah. In my big-sided games, I want to focus on communication. So literally, which coaching word is the entire club using for this? Is it switch? Is it banana? I don't care which word you use, as long as everyone understands it that we're using. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to focus on. If I see the same player constantly moving out of position, then only that player say, hey, try it. How come he does this? What can you do to get into a better position, for example? But I'm not stopping it for everyone. Yeah. If we're playing in a 3v1, yeah, and I'm focusing on dribbling, yeah, I'm beating my player. There's a 1v1 in the situation as well. Then I'm going to focus there on balance on one foot. Because almost always it's like a shortcut, a trick. When you're focusing on technique, execution of a decision, in football is 90% of the time is about balance on one foot. If I pass the ball, balance on one foot. If I shoot, balance on one foot. If I dribble and push the ball away, balance on one foot. If I receive the ball, balance on one foot. So how can I focus to help him to get more balance on one foot? And that's what I'm going to limit my. If I use the more words I need for that, the less efficient it is. Yeah, of course. If you're not asking me, give me a number, 1 or 2. No, I cannot. That depends on your group that you have at that moment. But less input, high output, less coaching, and with the same effect is probably more efficient and better. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's really good info. I guess it affects sort of both ball rolling time, active learning time, and yeah, just something that we can all work on, I think.
Yeah, brilliant that you have this, because I think one of the next slides we're going to talk about that one. So here is efficient use of time. We just heard the word ball rolling time, brilliant. FA, English FA is actually for me the first FA that I heard that put a number on this. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've only lived in England for a couple of months, but I hear this 70% quite often. 70% of ball rolling time. Which is a good number to aim for. Now we have something to aim for. This is what we want to do. Now in some sessions you want less. If you're going to go very intense sessions where you have a work rest rate of 1 in 4, yeah, maybe the active time will be lower. The ball rolling time will be a little bit lower, because you won't have a perfect repetition, explosive actions. So we're going to give a little bit more of inactive time, resting time. And then some you want to do that less. In a football conditioning training, 70% is probably not enough. In a football conditioning training, maybe you'll have to reach 80%, for example. But now we have something to aim for. For me, it's always interesting, what is ball rolling time? Is it when a ball is rolling, or is it when everyone is active? Because if one player is shooting on the goal and 19 are standing still, if that counts as ball rolling time, then that's not very good. Then it's easy to get to 70%. But if it counts when the ball is rolling, and everyone is active, that's something else. Now we can have use. I told myself I'm not going to say it. Useless ball rolling time. So slap my hand is less useful ball rolling time. You can do things that have little to nothing to do with football. and you still be active, and there's ball rolling time. So I want to challenge you as coaches as well. And in the next slide, we'll talk about it. How do we know that something is active or inactive? Is quite easy. Are they moving around? Is there a ball? And now we're active. How do we know it is useful or is less useful? Yeah. So first of all, I split it up in fours. This is a tool that you can use for yourself. It's very simple. I don't know if you tried this as a coach, but if you're a good coach, why not coach yourself? Why not help yourself to do reflections? I don't know if anyone did this. If you did this as an attendee, like raise your hand or say something in the chat or whatever. But who of you has filmed his own session before? Not the players, but himself, or even put a thing in your pocket to everything that you say, to record that. And then actually, now I'm going to pick up one player. I have 20 players. I'm picking out one player, Little Johnny. Little Johnny, how many times is he active? Minutes he active in the session, and when he's not active. So when he is standing still, yeah. So he's not doing anything. Then you have to look. Now, I've tried this in a couple of clubs I worked in, and you'd be surprised that we usually don't hit the 50% mark. And so we're complaining, kids don't play anymore. So please come here to my session for an hour and stand still for 30 minutes. Yeah. Are we then doing a good job? Probably not. Yeah. Now, of that active time, that 30 minutes of is 1 hour, some of these were 10 minutes of doing things with your arms back and forth, running to get to drink. Oh, this is active. Is it useful? It's not useless, but it's probably a little bit less useful. Yeah. So how do we know it's useful active time? Yeah. Is there a ball involved? Are there teammates? Are there opponents? And are there goals? If that's the case, I'm probably sure that it is useful active time. That doesn't mean that if any of these things are not there, that they're less useful. Sometimes it is necessary to take something away. Yeah. If it is necessary. If your player cannot do it in 10v1, yeah, I say in 10v1, he can't do the football action on a huge pitch. Okay, then it's extremely useful to take that player out and let him do a 1v0 or a 2v0 and then put him back into. But if one player cannot do your creating chances, what you want to see, and that means that everyone is going to have to play 15 against 0 without opponent and just pass the ball around, which is not passing, it's kicking the ball. Moving the ball from A to B is not passing. Then for that player, that is less useful active time. Inactive time, we can see that. And how do we measure this? How do I know it's more useful? How would I know if my coaching is useful? Because I filmed myself, or I asked my assistant coach or a mentor or whatever it is to look at my session. And he said, if there is guided reflection, so we're standing still, even if you're waiting for your time or there's resting time, but there's guided reflection, think of it. What is a good solution? How come this worked? How come this? Now this is useful inactive time. If you're standing still and you're just waiting until it's your turn, or you're just listening to the coach who's explaining the exercise, or you're just drinking and there's no reflection happening, then it's probably less useful inactive time. Now in active time, when you as a coach are active and we are coaching the exercise with the same fantastic exercise that you prepared, one coach can be extremely efficient and one coach is inefficient, because one coach is telling them go left, go right, now back. No, first him, then you have to go there. After you shoot, you do this. So you're explaining the exercise. And I want to challenge you as a coach. And to my shame, I will give you an anecdote. I've had the opportunity to work together with someone who is now head of academy in Arsenal, and he was before with the German national teams. And I gave the best exercise you see in your life. Yeah, and he stopped me after 20 seconds. He said, "What a waste of time is this?" Yeah, and I was in front of 40 other coaches, and I can tell you, it was not very comfortable. And he says, "You're just telling them where to go. So you're coaching the exercise. After 20 minutes of this, they will know where to go. They will not be better on 11-a-side. They just will be better at the exercise." So are you coaching the football action? If you're doing 3v1, are you coaching balance? If you're doing 6v4 in decision making, are you coaching position, moment, direction, speed? Or are you coaching? No, now you have to do this and now you have to do that. So this is a way of giving yourself, if you film yourself, what is active, inactive time, what is more and lesser useful. And in the words that I use, write them down, literally. I said this, now do that. Now we are going to do 2 more minutes. Yeah, it's almost over. The ball is out. There's all these things as coaching the exercise, as refereeing, and there's less coaching part of the football action. Yeah, you can coach while they're active. You can coach. You don't necessarily need to stop everyone all the time. You can also coach during guided reflection, ask questions. Yeah, but if there's 2 minutes rest, and of those 2 minutes, you are talking 1 minute and 45 seconds, and they're talking 15 seconds, I'm going to say this is probably less useful. They have to be talking more. You have to be talking less. Good. After the session, so we've prepared our session. We know what we want to do. We know what we want to be specific, more specific. So we did our session. We coached. We helped reflecting during the break times. We didn't stop everyone all the time when it's only relevant to just this player. It was an individual thing, and so on and so on. I filmed my session where I had a mentor or an assistant coach. And now objectively, I'm going to try to make something. What is subjective? Did you do a good session? I'm going to try to make this as objective as possible. Yeah. How much of my session in percentage, in moments, I have 90 minutes, and they were, of the 90 minutes, 45 minutes, this player, little Johnny, was active. Yeah. So 50% here is active time. Of that 50%, which is 45 minutes, we did 15 minutes of a warm-up. Yeah, in which we did dynamic stretches, in which we did running around the field, and in which we did all the things that are probably a little bit less useful because they are not as realistic. They don't look, I'm not saying that you don't need this. You will have less useful active time. Yeah, but how can I make my warm-up or my cool-down prepare for the rest of the session? You need to have a different warm-up for different basic actions that you're doing. So of my 45 minutes, 30 minutes were useful active, yeah, and 15 were less useful active. So inactive, wow, we had so much resting times, and that's when we reflected. Less useful inactive time when you explain your exercise, when they're standing still and waiting for, we keep that as low as possible. This was 5, this was only 10 minutes. And now you can say, how much is useful, lesser useful active, and all those things. And if you're happy with those numbers, keep doing it. Keep doing what you did. Yeah. If you're happy with this and so this is what I want to achieve, but then don't be a hypocrite. Yeah. Don't be angry with your players when they say, I'm happy how I play football. I don't want to become better at anything, or I don't want to be able to do it for a longer period of time. If that's what you show them, if that's your actions and behavior, that's what your players will show you. And that might be perfectly. That might be perfect. It depends on the mission and vision of your club. But if you see then, hey, I only have 20% useful active time, 30%, 90%, I don't care. And you say, how can I make it more? How can I improve on this? So you're doing guided reflection on yourself. Sometimes you need a mentor because we usually don't know what we don't know. But if you are a mentor, or if you don't have a mentor and you can do it by yourself because you filmed or you taped yourself doing it, and say, hey, this actually, I could have done better here. So I'm getting my numbers up. The more useful time, be it active or inactive, is going up, and the less useful time should go down a little bit. Yeah, and then the words, you look at yourself, what words did I use? How long did I speak? I spoke for 2 minutes, of which 1 minute was about how your socks are not where they should be and tie your lace, and 20 seconds was about explaining the exercise. Yeah, and then 10 seconds was, this was not good. And 5 seconds was to little Johnny, make sure that before you ask the ball, that you're always in a diagonal position. So you check your shoulder, you're in a diagonal position. How can you see both goals at the same time? So you only spoken 5 words who were coaching part of the football action, and you've coached 1 minute and 55 about other things. How can I be more efficient in my coaching? So before the session, during the session, and after the session. I want to almost end with a quote that I really like. There's in fact no teaching without learning. So we go back to our Juan Malilo and our Johan Cruyff. He didn't say there's no learning without teaching. That's not true. We can learn by doing. Our job as a coach, of course, is to make it more efficient by guided reflections, as long as everyone understands what we want to do. If you have this as a coach, your team understands what to do, and there is guided reflection with good questions and pointers that you're doing, you're already better than most of us, than average. You're probably already a very successful and good coach. And if you don't, at the end of the session, don't see the same learning in the players yet, but you afforded the learning, well, then we have to be sometimes more patient and try again and repeat. Yeah. And sometimes we let them forget this and we do it a couple of months later, a couple of weeks later, because learning is not linear. Not everyone learns at the same pace or in the same way. Some it takes 2-3 weeks and all of a sudden, boom, they got everything you said 3 weeks ago. And some of them, after one session, they learn step by step. So role of the coach, yeah. Can we do these things with a parachute and with fit light? How do you call it? Fit lights, or like a reaction board, and with a speed ladder and all those things? Of course, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. You just have to ask yourself: does this look still like 11 against 11 or 9v9? And the further away it is from football, probably the transfer will be lower. I'm not saying you should never do this, but keep the amount of time you do these things maybe lower than actually playing football. Yeah. So role of the coach, I kept them still at the top left because I don't want to make people angry. If you're selling fit lights and you hear me, then you'll be angry with me. If you really want to do it, buy them. Cost a lot of money, and that's good. It's good for the economy. If you want to do these things, keep doing it. My question sometimes is a famous Denzel Washington quote. It was about the media, but now in football world it might be true as well. Is it because you want to be right, or is it because you want to be first? Yeah, because if you have fit lights, then that looks fantastic, and maybe parents will come to you and give you money. And if your job is to get money, do it. But then don't say I'm very efficiently helping to learn football, because that's probably not true. We have our reflected learning. We have our big-sided games. This is supposed to be a medium-sided game, yeah. And then you have here small-sided games because there's only 4 people in the picture. We have your maximum actions, your football fitness. But here is a big one. Can we help our team to understand each other? What are we supposed to do in this situation? All of us. How do we work together in a team? So how do we improve the communication? If you get those 2 things, help understanding and communication, guided reflection after experience to accelerate learning, I want to come to you. I want to be in your club and in your team as a coach, definitely. If there are more questions that are not yet answered, first let me ask: is there anything else, Josh and or Nick, that you think that we should discuss now?
Nothing else to discuss. Just one personal note for you. How do you evaluate your sessions?
Well, here I evaluate what I have control over. Yeah, so I evaluate: did I create a session that affords players to learn this? Yeah. If I'm not giving you a football in my session, then my session didn't afford you to learn how to strike a football. Yeah. So did my session afford players to learn football? Was there communication, understanding between players? Was there the possibility for players to make decisions based on how we want to play? So what my teammates are doing based on the opponent. Can the players execute this? And can we do it for longer and more often? Then I'm already know, my training afforded this thing. What I want to say is, it's in decision making is a brilliant one, but we're not going to go too far in. Is football is a player-led sport. Is a sport where players make decisions. Baseball is a coach-led sport. Coaches make decisions. This player only has a 0 point whatever it is on a fastball, throw a fastball. This player on this kind of, do what the coach says. In football, we have 22 people moving at the same time with one ball. The coach has one voice, so he can't coach in 11 ways at the same time. So he only makes sure that the player afford to make good decisions. Did my session allow my players to make decisions, or did I make them for them? If they have to dribble a cone, yeah, what position are you dribbling to? Well, I decided that, not the player makes a decision. Yeah, the moment that he does it, yeah, when the other one in front of him stops, or when I whistle, yeah, so the player didn't decide it, I decided. In what direction? Yeah, to that cone. So he didn't make a decision in direction. At what speed? Fast. That's probably always going to be the same, fast. Do it fast. So I didn't allow my players to make those decisions. So I actually ask if I have the opportunity, luckily with the work with assistant coaches in the end, or in the past, or been an assistant coach, or worked with translators when I worked abroad. And I would ask them like, hey, every time that this player is moving, press start. When he stops moving, press stop. So at least I know what my active time is. And I know of myself, okay, I literally do this, yeah. Listen to myself later, like what was I actually coaching? And maybe it's not the best thing to say today, but sometimes it's horrible. Sometimes I'm so angry with myself. I've spoken 10 minutes about something that I could have said in 2 questions. But I evaluate and say, how can I do it the next time? So I reflect, and then I make some small pointers for myself. I'm not ashamed to say this, I even put a cross on my hand. And when I said that cross, I said, what I'm saying, that reminded me what I'm saying right now. Do I really need to say it? Is it essential, or can they figure it out by themselves? So that's how I do that for myself.
No, I think that's brilliant. I'm really looking forward to sort of getting back on the pitch after lockdown myself and putting some of these things into practice. So no, really appreciate that, Nicky.
Okay, we have 2 or 3 more slides. If there are more questions, Nick will let you know in a minute where you can put your emails to. If you want to ask me directly a question, that's also possible. Then we can always talk to each other about this with Bloomsbury as well. I have NLFC has social media that has probably 0 followers right now because it's been just launched a couple of days ago. But have a look if you want to. There's a website that's been launched today. I have an email. You can email me too. This week, I think I'm gonna because it would be nice if there's more people that know about it as well. I'm giving away 2 sessions for free, so Zoom sessions for a coach or a club or a player, whoever wants to do it. And I think you have to like share some things on social media, and the social media handle is NLFC 2020. Like it, share it, whatever it is. Send me an email, and I'll on the 27th of February, then the draw will be, so you can have 2 free Zoom sessions about whatever you want to talk about individually. That's it for me.
Fantastic. I think I'm definitely going to submit an inquiry there, Nicky. So hopefully there'll be an FA Cup style draw for that, and my name's pulled out of the hat. So we've had one question come in partway through it, and I've wanted to wait till the end to go through this because it revolves around feedback and the review period. So the question is regarding different types of feedback that you may give to the players, which do you find the most effective? And is there one where if you use too much of it, it can become detrimental to those players?
Wow, great question. There's a lot of thought in that. Let me try to answer it efficiently in 2 sentences. Yeah. The best feedback is the opponent. Yeah. So instead of saying, hey, this is good or bad or whatever it is, with you talking, which helps knowledge of football, let the opponent do it. Yeah. So the opponent, if you lose the ball and the opponent scores, that's a more efficient feedback than you saying it's good or bad. If it happens too often, make the space a little bit bigger, more teammates, less opponents, and so on. The fantastic thing is if you work with kids, you cannot really give too much feedback because they just won't listen. They'll stop listening to you or they'll forget. Yeah, kids are brilliant in this. The issue with adults is adults are going to try to do everything you just said. and they're going to be too much thinking and not enough doing. Yeah. So first of all, try to get your feedback. Can I design it that the feedback is by the opponent? That's one. If it's yes, let the opponent do it. Be quiet. Let the opponent give the feedback and just ask, how can you solve this problem? That's it. And secondly, is it necessary that I do this? Or if I just change space, teammates, opponents, will then he be more successful? And if the second is the case, then again, I don't need to talk. We don't need to have knowledge of football too much. We have to have knowledge in football. How come this worked? And if he gives a wrong solution, well, you know the solution as a coach. Brilliant. Let him give the wrong solution. Let him try it again. Well, how come it didn't work then? But because maybe let them do the thinking in football. Yeah, let them do it in action. I hope that's the shortest possible answer I can give to this one.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think allowing the players to learn the game themselves within the bounds that you've given them is definitely a way we can enhance learning. And what you've spoken about there with the opponent being the best feedback, I couldn't agree with you more there, Nicky. So that's it for our lab series this week. I want to say thanks to everyone who's watched, and thanks to Nicky for leading this lab webinar. I've learned a lot, and I can't wait to get back to the pitch to put a lot of this into practice. If you do want to reach out and give us some feedback and get involved in how Lab operates and think you can contribute, then definitely reach out by emailing learning@bloomsburyfootball.com, learning@bloomsburyfootball.com. Nicky, once again, thanks for your time, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you soon.
All right, brilliant. Thank you for having me. What was the score actually with Liverpool Man City?
One glance up. I've got it on while the webinar's going on, but it was 4-1 City in the end.
So I failed. Actually, everyone failed here. We said 0-5. Those things, but all right, guys. Thank you so much. See you soon. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Cheers,
Right,
Nicky.
see you, Nicky.
Thank you.
Bye.